August 17, 1944, northern France, in the vicinity of Falaise. The GMC CCKW sat abandoned by the roadside, its canvas covering rent by shell fragments, the engines still radiating warmth. The American contingent to which it belonged had been ambushed during a strafing assault by the Luftwaffe, a rare instance of German aircraft appearing over France in those declining days. Mechanics of the Wehrmacht from the 276th Infantry Division approached with caution, inspecting what the Americans referred to as a Deuce-and-a-Half. "Fetch the Hauptfeldwebel," one technician called out. "This one appears unharmed." What they would uncover in the subsequent hour would validate the growing unease that had taken root since the Normandy landings. Germany had already forfeited this conflict, not on the battlefield, but within the industrial behemoths of Detroit. The truck was colossal compared to its German counterparts, boasting a rated capacity of 2.5 tons. It utterly dwarfed the standard Opel Blitz, yet the mechanics immediately perceived something unforeseen. It was not overly intricate. The 6-cylinder engine was readily accessible, its components clearly demarcated with English labels. One mechanic opened the toolbox affixed to the running board. Within lay standard wrenches, pliers, and a manual printed on quality paper, adorned with detailed diagrams. "Observe this," stated the Hauptfeldwebel, leafing through the booklet. "Everything is elucidated with visual aids. Even a novice could follow these directives." They had previously acquired American trucks, but had never subjected one to such meticulous scrutiny. The GMC bore markings identifying it as a 1943 model CCKW 353, the extended wheelbase variant. Production number stamps indicated it was one of many thousands manufactured that year at the Pontiac facility, thousands from a solitary factory. The initial mechanical assessment illuminated the underlying philosophy. The GMC 270 engine generated 104 horsepower from 269 cubic inches of displacement. Not particularly impressive by German metrics. However, the mechanic instantly grasped that peak performance was not the primary objective. Every bolt was of a uniform dimension. Each nut could be loosened with the same implement. The spark plugs were positioned for effortless access. The oil filter could be exchanged without the need for specialized tools. "This is engineered for simplicity," one mechanic mused. The Hauptfeldwebel corrected him. "Nay, it is designed for an army numbering in the millions, where the majority of personnel are not mechanics. This is ingenious." He spoke the truth. The GMC was not conceived for absolute perfection, but rather for America's conscripted military, wherein farmhands from Iowa and factory laborers from Pennsylvania would be transformed into combat drivers with minimal instruction. Each component was chosen for its ubiquity and ease of replacement. Nothing was exotic. Nothing necessitated specialized expertise. They examined the 6-wheel drive system. A straightforward transfer case engaged the front axle via a solitary lever. In stark contrast, their Opel Blitz trucks were rear-wheel drive only, frequently struggling in the French mud and demanding judicious operation to circumvent becoming ensnared. This American vehicle possessed the capability to traverse terrain that would immobilize German machinery. The suspension utilized basic leaf springs, rudimentary yet remarkably resilient. The Hauptfeldwebel recalled the sophisticated torsion bar suspension on the Opel. Magnificent engineering that demanded factory-grade tools for rectification. These leaf springs could, if necessary, be hammered straight with a mere rock. Most disconcerting was the revelation gleaned from the numbers. Stamped into the frame was Pontiac Plant Designation 1. The production serial number indicated this vehicle was among approximately 150,000 units constructed in 1943 alone. One plant, 1 year, yielding more trucks than Germany produced across all classifications combined. One mechanic performed the calculation. If a single American facility manufactures this quantity of vehicles, how many such plants do they possess? The answer was manifold. GMC, Chevrolet, Studebaker, International Harvester, Dodge, Ford, all producing comparable vehicles to standardized military specifications, all featuring interchangeable components. That evening, the unit's supply officer joined the inspection. Prior to the war, he had been employed at the Opel plant in Brandenburg, possessing a profound understanding of automotive manufacturing. "We are misinterpreting the situation," he declared. "We perceive a straightforward truck, but this represents an entire manufacturing ethos we cannot replicate." He elucidated what the GMC signified regarding American industrial output. The stamped steel body panels were unrefined, yet could be fabricated in vast quantities by any stamping facility. The wooden cargo bed utilized standard lumber, obtainable from any lumber mill. The canvas covering was commercially produced fabric. Nothing was bespoke. Everything was readily available. "Observe the chassis," he continued, indicating the ladder frame. "Straight steel channels welded together. Any structural steel mill could produce these. Contrast that with our Opel, featuring precisely formed frame rails requiring specialized dies." The Americans had leveraged their singular advantage, immense industrial capacity. The GMC was not inherently superior to the Opel Blitz in terms of engineering elegance, but it excelled in the decisive metric, manufacturability. The supply officer's prognosis grew grim. In 1943, we manufactured approximately 27,000 Opel Blitz trucks. The Americans likely constructed 20 times that number of these GMC vehicles alone, and that pertains to only one truck model from one manufacturer. He was being conservative. American factories would produce over 562,000 CCKW trucks throughout the war. Germany's total wartime production of the Opel Blitz, the cornerstone of Wehrmacht logistics, amounted to perhaps 100,000 units, the majority being the 4x2 variant, which lacked the GMC's all-wheel drive capability. Over the subsequent week, the unit employed the captured GMC for logistical runs. It fundamentally altered their operational capacity. Where their Opel trucks struggled through muddy farm tracks, the GMC simply plowed ahead. When overloaded beyond its rated capacity, a frequent occurrence, it continued to function admirably. The six-wheel drive provided traction that their rear-wheel drive vehicles could not match. A supply sergeant who drove it daily offered his assessment. "This truck is dependable in a manner our vehicles are not. It is not that it is superior in construction, rather, it is built with the expectation of abuse. They engineered it with the understanding that drivers would overload it, neglect maintenance, and operate it as if intent on its destruction." That was the revelation. American engineers had designed the GMC for the realities of warfare, not its theoretical constructs. They presumed drivers would be inadequately trained, maintenance would be delayed, and operating conditions would be severe. Consequently, they constructed it accordingly: simple, resilient, and forgiving. On August 25, 1944, the same day the Red Ball Express commenced its operations, the 276th Infantry Division received orders to retreat eastward. They witnessed something that completed their education in American logistical prowess. An American convoy traversed a parallel roadway, not a tactical maneuver, but a logistical column. The observing Germans meticulously counted the vehicles as they passed. After half an hour, they relinquished the count. Truck after truck after truck, stretching to the horizon. GMC CCKW trucks were predominant, all identical, all laden with supplies, all proceeding with mechanical precision towards the front lines. "Where are their horses?" inquired a young soldier, genuinely bewildered. The Hopfeld-Weibel comprehended that the boy had never encountered a fully motorized military force. Within the Wehrmacht, 80% of logistical operations relied on equine power. Their division alone required over 5,000 horses to transport supplies. These animals necessitated sustenance, hydration, rest, and veterinary attention. They could traverse approximately 30 kilometers per day under favorable conditions. They perished by the thousands during winter. American divisions possessed no horses. They had trucks. Thousands of trucks that could cover hundreds of kilometers daily, required no fodder, did not tire, and did not succumb to freezing. The supply officer conducted further calculations that night. Each American division possesses approximately 2,000 trucks. They have 40 divisions in France. That equates to 80,000 trucks supporting combat operations, not including logistical services. We possess 3 million horses across all fronts and perhaps 100,000 trucks. Someone posed the self-evident query: how could they produce such a multitude of vehicles? The answer was agonizing to articulate. American automotive manufacturing plants had been designed for mass production long before the war. Ford's assembly line, General Motors production systems. When war erupted, they simply converted civilian production to meet military exigencies. The same factories that produced Chevrolet sedans manufactured GMC trucks. The same workers who assembled Oldsmobiles assembled military vehicles. The transition was seamless because the fundamental manufacturing philosophy remained identical: standardization, interchangeability, mass production. Germany possessed exceptional engineers but lacked this industrial infrastructure. The Opel plant in Brandenburg, even at its zenith of production, could not rival a solitary American automotive complex, and America boasted dozens of such complexes. By September 1944, the unit had secured 3 additional GMC trucks and a Dodge WC-63. The mechanics observed something remarkable. Parts were interchangeable not only between GMC trucks, but also between vehicles from different manufacturers. A GMC carburetor fit the Dodge. Electrical components were standardized. Even tires were of the same dimension. They have standardized their entire vehicle fleet, the supply officer explained. One set of specifications, multiple manufacturers. This implies that any mechanic can service any truck, and any parts depot can supply any vehicle. Their logistics are unified in a manner we have never achieved. The Wehrmacht utilized vehicles from dozens of manufacturers with incompatible parts. A mechanic trained on an Opel could not necessarily service a Borgward or a Mercedes. Parts warehouses had to maintain inventories for hundreds of vehicle types. It constituted a logistical catastrophe. On October 3, 1944, the division's remaining vehicles became immobilized when fuel shipments failed to materialize. The horses could forage for sustenance, but the trucks sat inert. Concurrently, American operations proceeded unabated as their supply network, fueled by thousands of GMC trucks, reliably delivered fuel to forward units. The mechanics spent their enforced idleness poring over the captured American trucks. One made an observation that crystallized their understanding. We designed our vehicles to be superior. They designed theirs to be good enough, but in overwhelming numbers, which wins in total war. The Hedfeld-Weibel meticulously documented his findings in a detailed technical report concerning the GMC CCKW. It chronicled every aspect: the standardized components, the straightforward maintenance procedures, the robust construction that prioritized durability over refinement. The report noted that while the Opel Blitz surpassed the GMC in fuel efficiency and maneuverability, these advantages were rendered inconsequential when Germany produced 1 truck for every 5 or 6 American vehicles. The report concluded, American vehicle production exemplifies an industrial capacity that we cannot equal. Their manufacturing philosophy prioritizes quantity and standardization over individual vehicle perfection. In prolonged warfare, this approach has proven devastatingly effective. Similar reports were inundating Wehrmacht headquarters from every theater of operations. German intelligence analysts compiled American production statistics with escalating alarm. The figures were staggering. American factories produced 2.4 million military trucks during the war. Germany, Italy, and Japan combined could not approach this total. December 1944 witnessed the Ardennes offensive, Hitler's final desperate gamble in the West. The logistical framework of the operation depended heavily on capturing American fuel supplies, as Germany lacked sufficient fuel to sustain the offensive. German soldiers were ordered to utilize captured American vehicles whenever feasible, as German logistics could not keep pace. The irony was profound. Germany's last major offensive hinged on seizing the very vehicles and fuel that symbolized the reasons for their impending defeat. The 276th Infantry Division participated in the offensive, employing their collection of captured American trucks alongside their few remaining Opel vehicles. When the offensive faltered, it was not primarily due to American resistance, although that was fierce, but rather because German logistics collapsed. Panzer divisions abandoned their tanks when fuel trucks failed to reach them. Infantry units reverted to horse-drawn wagons, as motorized transport had broken down. Meanwhile, American logistical operations continued with mechanical efficiency. The Red Ball Express had concluded its service in November, but American logistics now operated from Antwerp, Brussels, and Cherbourg. Trucks conveyed supplies along routes that grew increasingly efficient as engineers repaired French infrastructure. The American Army functioned as a machine, powered by industry operating at a scale Germany had never attained. In January 1945, as the Ardennes offensive waned and German forces retreated, the captured GMC trucks proved invaluable. They continued to operate. The Opel trucks, subjected to the same harsh conditions, had largely broken down. The disparity was not solely a matter of maintenance, it was a difference in design philosophy. The GMC was engineered to withstand punishment. The Opel was constructed to exacting German standards of precision that could not tolerate wartime abuse. By March 1945, the 276th Infantry Division was defending positions in the Rhineland. American forces had crossed the Rhine in overwhelming strength. The mechanics observed American supply operations with professional admiration tinged with despair. They have forged an army sustained by logistics, and they have established logistics that are unstoppable, the Hopfeld-Weibel remarked. Our army was conceived with the assumption that we would engage in brief campaigns where tactical superiority would compensate for material deficits. We never anticipated this. Years of sustained combat against an adversary that produces materiel at a rate exceeding our capacity to destroy it. The division surrendered on April 18, 1945. They were transported as prisoners to processing centers in American GMC trucks. The journey provided a final visceral lesson in American industrial might. At a processing center near Koblenz, prisoners observed hundreds of American trucks in motor pools. Young American soldiers serviced them with a casual efficiency that would have been inconceivable within the Wehrmacht. Parts were abundant. Tools were readily accessible. Maintenance manuals were sufficiently simple that soldiers with minimal training could execute complex repairs. A captured mechanic conversed with an American motor sergeant who, considering the circumstances, was surprisingly genial. "Your mechanics? Heck, we need mechanics. Can you work on these?" The sergeant gestured towards the GMC trucks. "Yes, we've maintained several captured ones." "Good. The war is over for you fellows, but these trucks still require upkeep. I can get you assigned to the motor pool. Better than sitting behind wire." Over the ensuing weeks, German mechanics labored alongside American soldiers, maintaining the very vehicles that had contributed to their defeat. The American sergeant elucidated the maintenance philosophy with unguarded candor. "We design everything for speed, rapid servicing, common parts, straightforward procedures. Observe this engine. A complete overhaul can be accomplished by a two-man team in 8 hours using field tools. Try doing that with one of your trucks." The German mechanic acknowledged the veracity of his statement. An Opel engine overhaul necessitates factory conditions and specialized equipment. We designed for precision. You designed for practicality. Precisely. During peacetime, your approach likely yields superior vehicles. In wartime, our method produces vehicles that keep armies mobilized. How many of these GMC trucks do you believe we manufactured? I cannot say. Hundreds of thousands. Over 500,000 of this model alone. Then you have the Dodges, the Studebakers, the Internationals. Millions of trucks in total. That is what won the war. Not superior equipment, but more equipment than you could ever destroy. The American continued. You know what's amusing? These trucks are not exceptionally complex. We utilized commercial truck technology, with minimal modifications for military application. The engines are of a commercial design, as are the transmissions. We simply made them rugged and produced them in immense quantities. This was the definitive lesson absorbed by the German mechanics. America had triumphed through its industrial philosophy as much as its industrial capacity. They had designed for mass production from inception, standardized with ruthless efficiency, prioritized reliability over sophistication, and established supply chains capable of sustaining operations indefinitely. The mechanics spent months in prisoner camps, many of them working in American motor pools. They witnessed the sheer scale of American logistics on a daily basis. Convoys of hundreds of trucks transporting supplies across occupied Germany. Repair depots stocked with more spare parts than entire German divisions had possessed. Production systems so efficient that damaged vehicles were often replaced rather than repaired, as new vehicles arrived faster than repairs could be completed. In late 1945, as repatriation commenced, German mechanics returned to a devastated homeland. Cities lay in ruins, factories were destroyed, yet American vehicles were ubiquitous. GMC trucks transporting reconstruction materials, Jeeps carrying occupation forces, equipment facilitating the commencement of German rebuilding. The Hedfeld Weibel, now a civilian, found employment at a reconstruction depot in Frankfurt. His familiarity with American vehicles made him an asset. One day, while instructing young Germans in vehicle maintenance, he reflected on the war's teachings. Before the war, we held the conviction that German engineering was preeminent, that quality would triumph over quantity. We were mistaken. The Americans grasped modern industrial warfare more profoundly than we did. They produced adequate equipment in overwhelming numbers. They standardized with unyielding rigor. They designed for the army. They had millions of ordinary men, not the elite specialists we desired. He gestured towards the GMC trucks in the depot yard. These trucks are not engineering masterpieces, but they secured victory because hundreds of thousands of them existed. They all utilized identical parts. Any soldier could operate them, and any mechanic could repair them. That was the genius, not in the individual vehicles, but in the system that produced them. By 1947, the Marshall Plan was delivering aid to Germany, transported primarily in American trucks. German mechanics maintained these vehicles, applying lessons honed through years of observation and practical experience. As German industry began its resurgence, many enterprises integrated American manufacturing principles, standardization, component commonality, and design for ease of manufacture. The GMC CCKW remained in American service until the 1960s, a testament to its robust design. Many served even longer in Allied militaries. The Opel Blitz, despite being an excellent vehicle, became emblematic of Germany's industrial limitations during the war. In the ensuing decades, German automotive manufacturers amalgamated German engineering precision with American mass production techniques. Companies such as Mercedes-Benz, BMW, and a rebuilt Volkswagen produced vehicles that embodied both philosophies: precision engineering designed for efficient mass production. Former Wehrmacht mechanics who had serviced both German and American vehicles during the war became invaluable consultants to the rebuilding German industrial sector. They understood both methodologies and could articulate why the American system had proven superior in sustained conflict. In a 1967 interview for an automotive trade journal, one such consultant summarized the core lesson. The GMC truck taught us that in modern warfare, perfection is the antithesis of good enough. Germany designed exquisite vehicles that were too complex for mass production and too sophisticated for field maintenance. America designed adequate vehicles that could be manufactured by the millions and maintained by virtually anyone. We lost not because our engineers were inferior, but because we fundamentally misunderstood the requirements of industrial warfare. The article featured a photograph of a restored GMC CCKW in an automotive museum. The caption read, "American GMC CCKW Deuce-and-a-Half truck, over 560,000 produced 1941 to 1945. These robust vehicles formed the very core of the Red Ball Express, embodying the American ethos of industrial might. This philosophy, driven by unparalleled mass production and standardization, ultimately proved to be the decisive factor that overwhelmed the Axis powers. Standing nearby, a meticulously restored Opel Blitz was positioned for a direct comparison. The accompanying plaque identified it as a German Opel Blitz, a 3-ton transport, with roughly 100,000 units manufactured between 1937 and 1944. While acknowledging its excellent design, the text noted its limitations: constrained production capabilities and a prevalent lack of four-wheel drive across most models. The stark visual contrast between the two vehicles eloquently conveyed the entire narrative. Both were undeniably well-engineered trucks. However, one existed in staggering numbers, benefiting from uniform components, straightforward maintenance, and an expansive logistical framework capable of sustaining military operations indefinitely. The other, a product of exceptional quality, was simply not produced in sufficient quantities, hampered by an industrial infrastructure that simply could not rival the sheer scale of American manufacturing output. The automotive experts who first inspected that initial captured GMC in August of 1944 immediately grasped its profound significance. They had, in essence, witnessed both the future and Germany's recent past. The American approach to industrial strategy, forged in the automotive factories of Detroit and honed over decades of relentless mass production, had definitively proven itself the superior method for conducting modern warfare. The GMC CCKW was far more than just a truck. It served as a stark instructor, imparting vital lessons on the realities of industrial conflict, on the fundamental principles of design philosophy, and on the undeniable truth that sheer quantity possesses its own inherent quality. For the German mechanics tasked with maintaining these vehicles, first as captives and later as civilians, contributing to their nation's rebuilding, these lessons profoundly shaped the remainder of their lives and left an indelible mark on German manufacturing for subsequent generations. The account of the German mechanics and the GMC truck ultimately illustrates the power of learning through adversity. They had previously championed German excellence, prioritizing precision over volume and technical perfection over widespread production. The American trucks, characterized by their simplicity, abundance, and dependability, served as a powerful testament to a different, ultimately more effective approach. This hard-won knowledge, though initially painful to acquire, proved to be an invaluable asset during the Reconstruction period. It played a crucial role in transforming Germany from a vanquished foe into a thriving ally, a metamorphosis built upon the profound lessons gleaned from the thousands of American trucks that had traversed the European battlefields. Those mechanics who operated the captured GMC trucks readily admitted that they had never encountered vehicles quite like them. This was not due to superior engineering in the traditional sense, but rather to a production philosophy that Germany had consistently failed to master. This frank and humbling acknowledgement marked the nascent stage of a wisdom that would ultimately lead to the rebuilding of an entire nation.